is one man tó ní ọlọ́kadà kan máa ń wá síbi sàárè ìyàwó òun every week, ìbò òun ò ní àìjẹ́ àrò ẹni tó ọlọ́kadà yẹn jẹ́ rárá. And for like 6 months lòun ti máa ń wò látọ̀ọ̀kan láti inú mọ́tò òun, same day same time ni. Ó ní every Saturday ní déédéé aago 2 ọ̀sán lárákùnrin yìí máa páàkì ọ̀kadà rẹ̀ tí ó dẹ̀ jókòó síwájú sàárè ìyàwó òun for like 1 hour. And nǹkan tó jẹ́ kàyéfì fóun ni pé kò kí ra flower wá, bẹ́ẹ̀ sì ni kò ní wí gbólóhùn kankan títí tó máa fi kúrò ńbẹ̀. Ṣe ni ó ṣàjókòó tí ó cross leg ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ tí ó sì dorí rẹ̀ kodò. Nígbà àkọ́kọ́ tóun rí òun rò pé ó ṣe mistake sàárè yẹn ni because cemetery yẹn fẹ̀ gan. Lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ èèyàn tó bá wá bẹ̀dẹ̀ máa ń ṣi sàárè yẹn gbé síra wọn. But ìgbà tó ṣàn padà wá léraléra nínú bí òun pé ta lárákùnrin yìí ná. Báwo ló ṣe mọ ìyàwó mi, báwo ló ṣe jẹ́ sí tó fi máa lo dídí 1 hour lórí sàárè rẹ̀. Ó sì jẹ́ pé àwọn fámílì ìyàwó òun yìí gan bọ́dà láti bẹ sàárè rẹ̀ yẹ̀wò for like a month ìgbà míì gan. Ní 14 months ago ló kú nítorí breast cancer tó sì jẹ́ ọmọ 40 years old. Àwọn dẹ̀ fẹ́ra for like 20 years táwọn dẹ̀ bímọ méjì. Táwọn dẹ̀ jọ gbé ní rẹ̀pọ̀ tí ò sí wàhálà kankan kó tó di kó ṣaláìsí. Besides kò sí anything nípa past life ẹ̀ tó attach mọ́ ọlọ́kadà kankan rárá. Arákùnrin ọlọ́kadà yìí níṣe ni máa ń banújẹ́ tí máa ń sunkún lórí sàárè ìyàwó òun bí ẹni pọ́ pàdánù èèyàn pàtàkì ni. Because òun máa ń rí látọ̀ọ̀kan dìwé bó ṣe máa ń ṣe àti bó ṣe máa ń fọwọ́ rẹ̀ méjèèjì gbá sàárè ìyàwó òun mú nítorí kodò. Ó lárákùnrin yìí ṣàṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ títí fá for like 3 months tóun rí bára òun ò ṣe gbámọ́ nìyẹn. Bóun ṣe bọ́lẹ̀ kúrò nínú mọ́tò òun nìyẹn tó ń dẹ̀ lọ bá tààràtà níbi tó wà. Ọlọ́gbọ́n tó dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé òun ń bọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n kò tiẹ̀ yíjú padà rárá. Níṣe ló gbá sàárè yẹn mú ṣinṣin tí ó jù ú lẹ̀ bóun ṣe sọ̀rọ̀ jákè nìyẹn tó ní. Lo excuse me, èmi ni ọkọ ẹni tẹ́ wà ń bi sàárè rẹ̀ yìí, ẹjọ́ báwo lẹ ṣe jẹ́. Ó ní arákùnrin yìí kọ́kọ́ dákẹ́ lọ náà tí ó sọ̀rọ̀ rárá for some moment. Ó ní ìgbà tí arákùnrin yìí yíjú padà sóhun, ojú rẹ̀ ti pọ́n bí ẹ̀yẹ náà pẹ̀lú omijé bó ṣe sọ̀rọ̀ nìyẹn tó ní. Ẹjọ́ ẹ má bínú, kò mí kí n ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀, mo kàn wá dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀ ni. Ó ní ló ń bá wò pé dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀ fún kí ni.
Somebody submitted a spooky story saying that they encountered the devil in LA and they nearly sold their soul. I am back with another spooky story, and I don't know if you want to watch this one at night. We're going to call the person who submitted the story Angela. Angela says that she's sending this anonymously because she doesn't want anybody connecting the dots. Just know that she came to LA for music, left when she realized that the devil may not just be a biblical figure and that he lives right here on earth, specifically Los Angeles. So Angela goes on to say that people joke about selling your soul for fame. No one talks about how ordinary the first step looks. For Angela, it started with an invite. A friend of a friend told her about a small industry gathering in the hills. Nothing crazy, just networking, good view, a few producers, and a few up-and-coming artists. She says when you're chasing opportunities, you say yes. So she went. She pulls up and the house was gorgeous. The energy felt wrong. When she walks in, it seems like everybody was smiling. Their smiles looked forced. The way people were talking in the house is as though they're whispering. They're talking so low as if they didn't want to wake something up. Angela said the second she felt how she felt, she should have gone home. And then she says someone important, she's not gonna name who, recognized her from a clip she posted and called her voice rare. They got into this conversation, they're talking back and forth. Now this is someone that Angela admired. They get a drink, they're talking. Next thing Angela knows, she's being led downstairs to a private room. The person that she was talking to told her that there was a studio downstairs. He asked her if she wanted to check it out. She was like, sure. When they got downstairs, that's when everything changed. The room wasn't a studio. It was more like a lounge. She said there was red lamps, velvet seats, and one big mirror that covered the entire wall. 2 men and a woman was already inside of that room. They all looked like normal people. However, it seems like these people have been waiting for Angela. So they get in the room, they ask her to sit, and they ask Angela a few questions. First question was what she wanted from music. Angela said the usual: success, stability, impact, tours. Now, Angela said that the way that these people were listening is as though they've heard this exact story like 1,000 times before. After Angela gets done, the woman leans in and says, we can give you all of that, but nothing in this city belongs to you for free. Angela says whole time she's laughing because she thinks the lady is being metaphorical. Spoiler alert, she wasn't. She opens a small leather case, slides it across the table, and inside was a sheet of paper. Not a contract, not a deal memo, something.
Scary story time while I reactivate this slime. Oh my gosh. I get my money's worth, so get yours. Yeah. It just looks like I put a whole bunch of glue all over the table, bro. Ghost in the Backyard edition. Like, So this happened when I was in elementary school. I was definitely a little kid, and I remember I was in my room at the time, and I was doing something with my sisters. I cannot remember, but I was at my dad's house, and I remember that room always gave me the heebie-jeebies at nighttime because it was just creepy. I don't know, but I loved being in it in the daytime because of the windows, right? The way this room was kind of set up was that I can see kind of half of the front yard and then the backyard, right? I can see that. Now, I remember like minding my business with my siblings and then seeing like a man walking along the sidewalks in front of the house. Now, this man kind of had his head down and he looked like he was minding his business. So I'm not thinking it's a big deal. Time goes on, my sisters go to their room, and I completely forgot that this man walked by, right? I'm chilling next to my window, and next thing you know, I see this same man that I seen earlier in my backyard walking around my dad's garden just like in circles. Just he did like 2 or 3 times. I'm looking at this man, like full on staring at him. He doesn't make eye contact with me once, and then I see him like kind of walk in the direction where my window is to kind of hide behind our playhouse. When he ducked behind like the playhouse, I ducked too. So I duck and I'm like kind of peeking over my bed through my window. I see him get up, make direct eye contact with my window, walk into like this corner where this like old tree was, and he's just there. He's out of my view. So I immediately run to my dad. I'm like, Dad, there's a creepy man in our backyard. Like, you gotta get him. Like, he's creepy. He was just in our backyard. So obviously concerned, he gets up, he goes to the backyard, he checks all the places where I tell him to check, and he's like, look, there's nobody back here. Like, what are you on? Like, there's no one back here. And I'm like, no, there is. Like, he went behind this way, like that, just tripping off of it. I know some people are gonna be like, okay, where's the scary part? Like, this is not scary, y'all. To describe my old house and its backyard, we had this huge fence that like you couldn't climb up unless you had some type of assistance. You needed assistance to climb this wall. So everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy because what are you talking about? Like, there's nobody back here. And I'm just trying to like explain myself, like, I promise I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not making this up. I'm not gonna say they didn't believe me, but I feel like they definitely thought I was tripping. I remember in that same night, I seen this man standing by my bay window, and I was terrified, and I hardly ever slept in that room again. So that's the scary part, and no one believed me. And I know a lot of y'all don't believe my story times, but I couldn't make this up, y'all. Like, that man was in my backyard, and I seen him. Like, I can still remember every detail about this man to this day. Bye.
Today's story really has just a wild plot twist. And that's kind of what we do on this channel. We look for stories with crazy plot twists. This is a big one. So the story opens with these officers, these police officers in Lebanon that have been sent to this beach to go investigate this strange object on the sand. And they go to this object and they're sort of bewildered by it. And as the story progresses, you have a pretty good idea of what this is, why it happened, and likely what's going to be the outcome. But then at the very end of the story, when you're like, yeah, this is pretty predictable, it just goes completely into left field, and you're going to be left being like, I've never heard a story like that. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload 2, 3, even 4 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please sneak into the like button's house and take all their ball caps and fold the bill into Mickey Mouse ears. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. One night in late January of 1965, a police officer named Fareed Jaber, along with another officer, his partner, were walking along a beach in Antilias, Lebanon, which is a tiny village just north of Beirut. The weather was absolutely terrible. It was freezing out, it was pouring rain, and it's nighttime, so it's dark out. I mean, this is a pretty nasty time to be out, walking around. As much as Fareed and very likely his partner would have desperately liked to have been home in bed right now, they knew that, they both needed this job, especially Fareed. It paid well and he couldn't afford to lose it, and so sometimes doing this job, being a cop, was pretty uncomfortable, and he'd sort of just accepted that. Now, the reason that Fareed and his partner were out here right now patrolling this beach in this terrible weather was because somebody had called in and said that they saw something odd on the beach, and they thought maybe it could be a dead body, or it could just be a body, period. They didn't know, but there was something odd on the beach, and so the police were called to go have a look. Now, this part of Lebanon was considered pretty safe, so, the idea of bodies turning up sort of out on the beach or out, in public anywhere was just sort of unheard of. And so Farid and his partner really didn't expect to walk up on a dead body or something. In fact, Farid really just expected to find some dead sea creature or something, or maybe some trash, he didn't know what. But, as he's walking along with his jacket pulled around tight and he's scanning the beach with his flashlight, battling the weather, he just felt kind of annoyed that they were out here. Like, this is going to be nothing. Like, why are we even being called out here? There's no way there's literally a body on the beach right now. But, sure enough, as Farid and his partner continued walking along the beach, looking around with their flashlights, far down the beach, right in the middle of the sand, they did see this odd object just laying out on the sand. And even
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
They went to both.
Yeah.
one night in late January of 1965, a police officer named Farid Jaber, along with another officer, his partner, were walking along a beach in Antilias, Lebanon, which is a tiny village just north of Beirut. The weather was absolutely terrible. It was freezing out, it was pouring rain, and it's nighttime, so it's dark out. I mean, this is a pretty nasty time to be out, walking around. As much as Farid and very likely his partner would have desperately liked to have been home in bed right now, they knew that, they both needed this job, especially Farid. It paid well and he couldn't afford to lose it, and so sometimes doing this job, being a cop, was pretty uncomfortable, and he'd sort of just accepted that. Now, the reason that Farid and his partner were out here right now patrolling this beach in this terrible weather was because somebody had called in and said that they saw something odd on the beach, and they thought maybe it could be a dead body, or it could just be a body, period. They didn't know, but there was something odd on the beach, and so the police were called to go have a look. Now, this part of Lebanon was considered pretty safe, so, the idea of bodies turning up sort of out on the beach or out, in public anywhere was just sort of unheard of. And so Farid and his partner really didn't expect to walk up on a dead body or something. In fact, Farid really just expected to find some dead sea creature or something, or maybe some trash, he didn't know what. But, as he's walking along with his jacket pulled around tight and he's scanning the beach with his flashlight, battling the weather, he just felt kind of annoyed that they were out here. Like, this is going to be nothing. Like, why are we even being called out here? There's no way there's literally a body on the beach right now. But, sure enough, as Farid and his partner continued walking along the beach, looking around with their flashlights, far down the beach, right in the middle of the sand, they did see this odd object just laying out on the sand. And even at first glance, from a distance, it did look human-like. It definitely had the form where it could be a person. And so right away, Farid and his partner are like, clearly that's what was called in. This is what we're here to investigate. Now, the two of them didn't run over to whatever this was. They have no idea what's going on here. I mean, if this really is a person, they don't know why they're here, if there's somebody that hurt them that's in the vicinity. So they're playing it safe. They're walking up slowly, scanning the whole beach, looking for any other indication of, whatever this is. Maybe there's other things that are odd on the beach, but there was nothing. It was just this odd body-like thing on the sand. But as they got closer, Farid in particular, he's looking at this object and he's like, that is definitely a person. I can tell that's a body on the ground. But there was just something odd about the body. It just looked off. There was just something unnatural about it. There's something that he couldn't put his finger on, but he's going to find out when he gets close. And so Farid and his partner, they get closer and closer, and both their flashlights are trained on this human-like thing. And then finally they're standing right over it and they look down, and for sure, this is a person. But they could now see, now that they're right up close, why this person seemed off. And it was because this body was missing its head. Now, right away, it seemed fairly apparent to Farid and his partner that this body, one, belonged to a man, and two, very likely they did not die of like an accidental drowning and get washed up on shore or something. Very likely, especially because of the decapitation, this man was murdered. Somebody killed him and likely dumped him here, or maybe dumped him in the water and then he washed up here. But this is foul play. And so Farid and the partner, they're like, okay, we got to search the area, do a cursory search, and just make sure, whoever did this isn't just nearby. We need to secure the scene. And so they drew their guns and they walked the area, but there was nobody else there. The beach is totally, desolate, minus this body and the police officers. And so after doing that cursory search and coming back to the body, Farid and his partner began talking about what they were going to do. Now remember, this is the mid-1960s in a small rural village in Lebanon. So this is not like a robust police department that Fareed and his partner were a part of. They did not have, huge resources to process this, vicious homicide, or at least what it looked to be a vicious homicide. They didn't even have radios to call in backup. I mean, they knew at best what they'd be able to do here is maybe by tomorrow they could have a couple more officers come out and begin to investigate and see what happened here. But just to do that, it would require literally going back to the station and rallying support and explaining what's going on and coming up with a plan and going out and doing that. And so as they're sort of talking through what they should do, because again, also remember, this is not an area where homicides take place either. I mean, this is pretty anomalous. So they don't even necessarily know how to process a homicide, but they say, okay, our best bet is one of us just needs to stay here with the body, basically guard the crime scene. And the other will go back to the station and file the paperwork and get this machine in motion so that tomorrow we can actually begin investigating. So basically one of them would have to stay the night literally on the beach in the freezing cold and the rain next to this dead body to make sure nobody came back to claim it or desecrate it in some way. And as they're talking about who was going to do that, Fareed was the more junior officer, and so pretty quickly it became clear that he was going to have to do it. And again, going back to the earlier part in the story where Fareed, he knew this job could be very uncomfortable sometimes, but he needed this job. He needed the income. He couldn't afford to lose this job. And so when it was sort of clear this was going to be his doing, he said, fine, I'll stay here. I'll stay with the body. You go, get the investigation started, and I'll see you tomorrow. Now, after Fareed's partner had left and had walked down the beach and disappeared, Fareed sort of realized just how bad this night was going to be. I mean, think about it. Not only is the weather awful, but he's literally, sitting next to a decapitated body. He's going to be just, in the company of this dead body all night. And on top of that, he suspects that somebody has killed this guy. This guy's been murdered. And maybe this body has been dumped here by the murderer. And even though they did a cursory search, it wasn't 100% certain that the killer or killers were not somewhere in the area. And so Fareed's thinking okay, I have to guard the body and be careful not to get attacked by the killer who could be, nearby. I mean, this is straight out of a nightmare. But, at the same time, Fareed's thinking to himself, I'm a trained police officer. I have my issued gun and my issued knife. I'm not completely defenseless here. If somebody were to come out here and attack me, I could hold my own. I could defend myself. And so he's at least telling himself that. And so as the rain continues to just pound down on Fareed, he's shivering, he's miserable. He knows he's supposed to be alert and, watching this crime scene. He's not supposed to sleep. But he's so uncomfortable that he finds himself getting down on the sand and kind of, getting into the fetal position, trying to find a little bit of comfort. Then at some point he does get a little comfortable, in fact, so comfortable that despite how awful it was outside, he did fall asleep at about maybe 2, 3 in the morning. And so Fareed falls asleep, and then a few hours later, he wakes up and he's in a panic.
A sukunya was outside my house. I remember when I was younger, very young, could I be an age I couldn't remember. But I know I was a little boy. And I remember I was up late at night. I should have been sleeping. But as a youth, I like to come out late and watch late night show. So that night I was in the living. While I in the living room, I end up and see a rat park. I said, Shaki, that rat is 10. When I said 10 points, long time as a little boy, you're supposed to be in your bed. But if you see a rat in the house and you kill it, you get 10 points. And when I say 10 points, I mean an opportunity to be up. I say, if I kill this rat and they come and catch me watching TV, I could easily say, Auntie, Mommy, Granny. The reason I was up is because I was killing a rat. So my plan was to kill the rat and put it right next to me until the week. When the rat pass, I take me say pass it. What? Because long time the house small, 4 corners. So if you rat a feel, it get in. For some reason I can't kill the rat, the rat run out. I remember the rat leaving and go through the front door. But after the front door there is the side of the house where you can see through the gate. So when I go on to sit down back, I start to hear a burning sound outside. I believe it was about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there. All I start to hear a burning sound outside the house. I don't know if anybody here does play Call of Duty COD Mobile, but one of the players, when they walk in, they have a burning sound when they leave fire trail in it. You could hear them before you see. I was hearing a burning sound earlier. And it's then I started to see a glow hitting the wall outside, and it have a slight glare hitting the glass on the inside. I said, Shaki, Jesus, don't come glowing in the night. When I see the object pass and take over the whole way, I said, Shaki, this is the devil. It wasn't like a ball of fire like the time I saw it in Trinidad. Okay, for the first time, viewers, pause a bit. You can go and check out my next Sukanya story where you could see the Sukanya in full form. Anyway, back to this story. Anyway, people, I saw the Sukanya. From my description, it has more head than body. It didn't have a foot to say, the hands was visible. But the most loud and recognized thing about this Sukanya was the eye. It was like a blood red with a thin one eye could have been the size of my head, and my head big. You know why I thinking to pray? At the same time I say Shaki next thing you pray. Because the truth is me and holy as me and spiritual like the rest. Say next thing I make a mistake in the I said next thing I said the wrong word reading the psalm. By the time I blink I see it. I said Shaki me and leaving here. Me and moving from here. No Sukanya was smiting me tonight. When I do, I realize my shoulder here, so and my hand stand up. It have a salt buckle on the ground. Talking about that salt. It's a good thing I don't listen to my mom. If I wasn't hard, I would have carried back this salt back in the cupboard. But because I am miserable and lazy at them, that I leave it in the living room. When I see the salt start glowing, I say, Father, don't tell me this thing right behind me. All I remember turning this much, like this much. Because my biggest fear is looking at it in the eye. Nobody never told me what Sukanyas could do. And at that age, I didn't understand it was a soap. Only I take the salt and I bathe my skin with it. I just take up the salt bucket like it's like a big cylinder. Me just turn the buckle on my head and try to bathe it. All I remember seeing down there, and I only seen the light glowing from right to left to right. Like he just watching and trying to scare me. In my mind, I like, you don't want to try to scare me. I done scared. He wasn't saying nothing. He wasn't shaking the glass. He wasn't moving aggressive. It was just making sure that its presence is known. And I think that Sukanya did that only because I was a little child. Because if it was an adult that know what to do, I am pretty sure he would not be so bold. But anyway, I sit down on a couch, fully bathed in salt. And I leave because I'm in complete shock. I can't move. I ain't move from that spot till 6:30 in the morning. When Granny walk out, so in my head I thinking what I see last night, well this morning is a can't be real. I sit down on the couch waiting to wake up. And I realize Shaquille not waking up. At the same time Granny park and say, yeah boy, what you doing now? I take God out of my thoughts and take my hand and put my face and like move shit. You know, everybody thinking, oh Shaquille, what? Me at this big age repeating this story, I like, what? People I thought I was dreaming. And I thought the devil just put my granny as an obstacle in my way as a little. Oh God, let me really, I am confused, I'm in shock. So I think the devil trying to put my granny next to me to confuse me. The first thing I do is get rid of the devil and I move my granny by shifting. Not knowing that it was actually my real granny. All I could hear, plunks, is a Coca-Cola buckle light the top of my head. The guy that hit the front, see everybody run out. I said, oh Shaki, this is not a joke. All my life I never see my granny elbow. Because granny rolling up she sleeve to pet another buck. Mommy run out a holy buck. I said, Mommy, what you doing? Me say, you gonna kill me, child. Granny said, let me go, you're gonna make another one, you're younger. Anytime I could try to make it through the door, is clunk. Anyway, people, that is my Sukanya story. Don't forget. Trinidad and also Tobago. Jumping over the first Storytime show of 2026 this March. Tobago, you're dated. Trinidad, you're dated. Let me start the back. And also to the fellas who think they're losing power in a relationship, link me. For the fellas who have a girl that you can't get over and she leave you, link me. Because you know somebody got through plenty pain, you know, and I don't know what to do. Link me. You fix the problem, right? And ladies, vice versa, if you have any same problem, link me. In the past couple of years, I've helped so much men and women get out of situations they thought they'd have never mentally left them. Text me my DMs and type in caps 1-on-1 to start your program and make sure we could get out this shit together, right? Have a blessed Sunday. Stay safe, prayed up, and always stay hydrated.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
At 12:30 a.m. on August 9th, 2013, a man named Kyle Lawson was asleep in his bedroom with his wife at their home in San Angelo, Texas, when his cell phone rang and it woke him up. Kyle looked at the caller ID and saw that the call was coming in from his 26-year-old brother, Brandon. And so, Kyle picked it up, but before he could even say hello, his brother said he needed help. And then he launched into this big story that really sounded completely insane. He told Kyle he was currently driving north on Highway 277, which is this totally desolate two-lane country road that runs through West Texas, and that 3 men were chasing Brandon. And on top of that, Brandon told his brother that, he's trying to get away from these men, but his truck was about to run out of gas. And so what he wanted Kyle to do was to, right now in the middle of the night, come meet him secretly to hand off a gas tank so Brandon could officially escape these 3 men. But as Kyle listened to this, he was not really actually concerned, at least in terms of Brandon being in any sort of real danger with regards to these 3 men that were chasing him. In reality, Kyle's reaction to this was just being so annoyed at Brandon. Because after hearing this story, this frantic story Brandon's telling him in the middle of the night, he was sure that really there were no 3 men, that instead his brother Brandon was just high again. And he was hallucinating. He was basically having an episode that was substance-induced. So Brandon had a history of methamphetamine use. He'd been clean for the last 6 months or so, and he'd been working on, being a better partner to his fiancée, Ladessa, and also a better father to his 4 children. But just 2 days ago, Brandon had also called Kyle, but it had been to ask Kyle if he knew where he could get some drugs. Now, Kyle did not immediately say, "Oh, here's where you go to get drugs." Instead, he tried to tell Brandon, don't do it. You should not get high. You're clean. You're doing good. But he was pretty sure Brandon had not listened, because ever since that phone call, even though Kyle didn't give him any, resources for drugs, Brandon must have gone and gotten drugs anyways, because his behavior had just been completely crazy in general. In fact, right now, Kyle knew from having spoken to his parents earlier that the whole reason Brandon was even driving on Highway 277 right now was because he got into a big fight with his fiancée and was supposed to be going to his parents' house to chill out. He was basically going to time out for bad behavior. That's why he was out right now. Now, Kyle knew Brandon was very likely high, and so this was not going to be a good time to reason with Brandon and tell him to, just come home or just go to your parents' house because, there's no such thing as these 3 men. You're just high. He's not going to listen to that. So instead, Kyle just focused on trying to calm Brandon down because, again, Kyle is not thinking Brandon is actually in danger. He's thinking this is just a hallucination. But as Kyle tried to do that, Brandon did not calm down. He got more and more anxious, and he's continuing to talk about these 3 men that are gaining on him. And finally, Kyle just said, "Dude, Brandon, have you relapsed? Is that what's going on here?" But as Kyle expected, Brandon swore up and down that he was not high, and he just kept on begging Kyle to come help him fast before these men caught up to him, come give me the gas I need so I can escape, come on, man. At this point, Kyle felt like there was no point even talking to Brandon, and in some ways he just wanted to hang up and forget about this whole thing. This was crazy. He has his own life and his own responsibilities. He shouldn't be babysitting his younger brother. But at the same time, Kyle was very close with his brother. Even if, he resented it, he did love his brother very much. And even though he did feel like there is no imminent danger here other than maybe Brandon to himself, Kyle decided, you know what? I'm just going to go out on Highway 277. I'm going to find Brandon and just get him back home. So he told Brandon he'd be right there, and then he hung up. About 45 minutes later, Kyle drove north on Highway 277 along with his wife in his passenger seat and their 4-year-old son in the back. Kyle's wife had not wanted him to be out in the middle of the night dealing with his crazy brother all alone, so she'd insisted that she and their son come along. And so as Kyle drove down the road, he kept an eye out for Brandon's truck. Now, to set the scene for you, this really is like a desolate highway. There's no real traffic, and really in either direction, it's just kind of open plains and some shrubs and small trees. This is a big, wide open area. It's pretty easy to see way out in front of you. And so he's got a great view, even though it's nighttime, but he can't see any vehicles. There's no truck, there's nothing. His brother is nowhere to be seen. But Kyle just kept on driving and kept on looking out. He was even just sort of looking out into the fields in case, his brother had veered off the road somewhere, which seemed entirely possible. But eventually, after driving for some time, way up ahead, sort of parked half on the road, half off, was a truck. Its lights were off, it's just sitting there. It's not even idling. It's clearly turned off. But as Kyle got closer, he realized it was Brandon's truck, so he had found Brandon. And so Kyle, he pulls over to the opposite side of the road, and he parks his car, and he tells his wife and his son to stay in the car, and he's going to go talk to Brandon, who at this point Kyle is assuming is sitting in his truck, waiting for Kyle. And also keep in mind, at this point, Kyle's thinking, well, there's nobody else out here. There's no 3 men chasing my brother. He's probably just sitting here, high as can be, and I'm gonna talk to him, and he's just gonna go home, and we're gonna move past this. But when Kyle walked over to the vehicle, there was nobody inside of it. Brandon's gone. And he's thinking to himself, this really doesn't make any sense, because on the ride to the truck, as they were on Highway 277, Brandon kept repeatedly calling Kyle over and over and over again, being like, come on, you gotta hurry up, you gotta get here, they're gaining on me like I'm in trouble, bring that gasoline, you gotta get here. And now that he's here, he's finally reached, clearly, Brandon's truck. It's right here, and Brandon's gone. He's gone from his truck. He didn't tell him that on the phone. Like, where is he? What's going on here? And so Kyle, he's like looking under the vehicle. He's searching the vehicle now for his brother, which is totally crazy. Like, what's his brother doing here? But as he's searching the vehicle for his brother and looking around the area for his brother, Kyle's phone rings, and it's Brandon. And so Kyle, who at this point is feeling really annoyed, he answers the phone and he's like, Brandon, where are you? And Brandon goes, bro, I'm right here. And Kyle's like, no, you're not. Like, I don't see you. There's no one here. Your truck is here. You're not here. But just then, Kyle looked out and there was a car coming towards him. So he saw the headlights and he realized it was a cop car. And so he's on the phone with Brandon. He's looking out at this cop car that's coming up this road towards him and clearly slowing down. Like the police officer is going to stop and talk to Kyle, presumably. And so as this cop car is coming in and slowing down right in front of him, Brandon on the phone says to Kyle, run away from that cop. Now, think about this. That meant Brandon had to be somewhere nearby because he can clearly see the cop car approaching Kyle. He's watching the scene. Even though Kyle has not found his brother, Brandon is clearly actually nearby. But Kyle, he's sort of quickly interpreting this and he's thinking, like, where is Brandon? Because he's looking out and it's just open fields in either direction on either side of this highway. It's like this barren wasteland out in the middle of Texas. Like, where is he hiding? There's nowhere to hide. There's a couple of shrubs and really small trees sort of off in the distance, but like there's really nowhere to hide. So where is Brandon? And Kyle, he's just feeling furious at this point. Confused, but furious. It's like, what are you doing, Brandon?